Bad news, kiddies. Were you hoping for a new Nintendo Switch to be launching sometime soon, hopefully before March of 2023? Because I feel like a lot of people were hoping for something like that, maybe at least an announcement, a showcasing of a new system, but it doesn't look like it's happening. It doesn't look like it's happening, and you would think pretty cut and dry. Okay, there's nothing to talk about here, but there is a lot to talk about with this because I feel like we're kind of missing something that goes alongside of this that really just kind of makes me a bit concerned about the future of the Nintendo Switch if we are indeed just consistently riding out this wave, much beyond just things like hardware limitations and graphical limitations and really, feature limitations that the Nintendo Switch has currently right now in 2022. It goes beyond that, and we'll get into all of this, but let's just get into the meat of the story first, and then we'll get into the trickle down portions of it. So this is stemming from an article on Nikkei. I think I'm saying that right. Nikkei, I don't know, whatever. Coming to us from Mr. Mochizuki, who, if you remember, Mr. Mochizuki was the person who said that a Switch Pro is coming in 2021, and then it never happened, and we got a Switch OLED instead, and everyone blamed YouTubers who were just reporting on what Mochizuki said instead of Mochizuki himself, but that's a story for another day. There will be no new Nintendo hardware this fiscal year, which ends in March of 2023. Not immediately clear whether that part of the article is from the own reporting or what Nintendo president Furukawa said, who was interviewed with the story. So then in the comments of this, David Gibson, who is like a translator guy who does a lot of the Japanese Nintendo presentations when they happen, the shareholders meetings and stuff, he comes along and says the article quotes Nintendo CEO. Normally, it wouldn't stockpile inventory in the summer to be ready for the end of the year when it's at its peak. This summer, we have not been able to produce as much in previous years. If we can produce the volume we want, I'm not optimistic that we'll be able to sell it all. Guidance calls for the sale of 18 million in the next 9 months. So, pretty cut and dry when you first look at it. Pretty cut and dry here. They're not doing it because they don't have enough materials. They don't have enough stuff to produce these systems, and they don't feel like these systems will necessarily sell. But there's a whole nother sphere of this beyond just the things like I said. I mean, let's be real. The graphical limitations of the system are showing. Imagine some of these games on stronger hardware. It's something that Nintendo fans have been dealing with for a very long time. Obviously, with the upcoming system, whenever it does happen, you would want to see at least a decent leap in terms of graphical fidelity. Like, the Wii U to the Switch, it was there, but it wasn't that pronounced. And when you look at something like a PS4 to a PS5, you could say, oh, it's kind of similar to that, but we're still not quite at the PS4 era with Nintendo Switch hardware as far as what these games are producing graphically. I mean, look at Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Looks like an HD 3DS game. I would be satisfied with a PS3 graphical style of the game. There's a lot of good looking PS3 games out there like Metal Gear Solid 4. So, but whatever. Looking beyond that, there's something that Nintendo keeps saying that I'm not sure I'm quite buying it right now when it comes to the hardware of the Nintendo Switch. Amidst all the hoopla yesterday for, of course, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and of course talking about things like the Mario Kart 8 DLC pack that includes 8 new course in it, which I think is really cool. We'll be checking that out very soon here on the channel. Nintendo actually had their physical quarterly report for the previous quarter, and there were some interesting things in there that really caught me off guard, especially with the Nintendo Switch hardware side of things. All right, so here's the report here, which is all nicely translated into English from Nintendo themselves. Due to delays in procurement of components such as semiconductors this year, we have not been able to conduct production as planned. However, we expect procurement to gradually improve from late summer towards autumn, giving us a clear outlook regarding production for the remaining calendar year. In preparation for the holiday season, we will leverage appropriate means of shipment and work to deliver as many Nintendo Switch systems as possible to consumers in every region. Now, you might be wondering, well, why would they talk about that? Like, why are they talking about semiconductor issues and stuff like that? The Nintendo Switch just announced that they've sold over 110 million units worldwide already, and I mean, that's a huge number. The Switch is a system that just keeps to seem, it keeps going and going and going. So why would they even mention that? Well, there's something very interesting within this financial report. Unit sales for the entire Nintendo Switch family of system declined 23% year on year to 3.43 million units. In the first quarter of the last fiscal year, titles from other software publishers helped drive hardware sales, particularly in Japan. But with the semiconductor shortage affecting the production this first quarter, unit sales of hardware have declined year on year. Now that really struck me as very interesting for a myriad of reasons. Down 23%. Okay, we've seen that across the board with every video game company, you know, not being able to produce enough units or people just not being interested enough in there. But with the Nintendo Switch, this isn't something like the PlayStation 5. You know, the PlayStation 5 is having serious manufacturing issues to the point of where it's like, you can't just go onto a website and buy a PlayStation 5. You have to go into like a waiting queue or buy them off eBay or buy them off of a scalping son of a bitch or something like that. It's not something that's easily attainable. But with the Switch, while granted I haven't looked to buy a Nintendo Switch in quite a while, I thought it was kind of the opposite of that. You know, I thought you could go into a brick and mortar store and just buy a Nintendo Switch. I thought online retailers had Nintendo Switches in stock, so I decided to take a look and see if that was the case. Here we are on GameStop's website. Let's see, can I buy a Switch OLED? Yeah, I could buy a new one, refurbished one, a pre-owned one. Okay, that's kind of cool. What about the standard Nintendo Switch? Oh, looks like I can get a new one here for $300. Okay, maybe they have a decent stock of Nintendo Switches. Let's check out another website. All right, let's look at Best Buy. Nintendo Switch OLED, add to cart. Standard Nintendo Switch, add it to cart. And give me the Animal Crossing one. Get you a nice little Switch Lite with the different colors, the coral, the blue, the turquoise. Well, that's kind of weird how those two websites have it in stock. What about Amazon? Amazon's huge. Let's check Amazon next. All right, so here's Amazon. We can get a Switch OLED tomorrow. We can get a standard Nintendo Switch here, shipped from Amazon. We can get a Switch Lite shipped from Amazon. It kind of looks like they're pretty easy to get a hold of. Pretty much every major website has them in stock. So is it so much an issue of semiconductors and not being able to produce systems, or is there something more? I mean, let's keep it real here. All right, with video game systems, there's kind of a cap. You know, there's kind of a cap as to how many they're going to sell. You know, you look at things like the PlayStation 2 and the sales of that system. You got to remember, that system was a DVD player alongside of a video game system. Also, they made very cheap iterations of the system towards the end of the system's life cycle, which is why people picked it up. They made that system readily available for many, many years. But does that sort of inflate the numbers? Like, how many people out there really want a video game console? You would think that over 110 million, you're starting to get to the threshold of what people are going to want to, you know, try to get people to buy your video game system. You're starting to hit that limit. You're starting to hit that hard limit, and that could be potentially why you're down 23%. I'm not sure why Nintendo is necessarily blaming semiconductor shortages, unless they're talking about shipping systems and they're not shipping as many systems to retailers. But once again, would you create a product and ship it to them if you're constantly sort of now in a downturn with your system sales? If you're down 23% year over year, I wouldn't be making as many systems to ship out to retailers because they're obviously available at retailers. You don't want dead stock sitting on the shelves. Retailers are not going to be like, hey, I need to buy 25 Nintendo Switches because they're not selling whatsoever and I just want to have them sit in the back room. So you would think that maybe this would actually be the time to do something like a hardware refresh. You're still going to sell systems. You're still going to sell systems, but you're not going to sell them quite at a large mark because you're starting to hit that threshold. You're starting to hit that limit of how many people are actually going to buy a video game system. So now you need to go back to your repeat customers and figure out, well, how can we get them to buy something else? How can we get them to buy another system within the Switch family? And it's like, a refresh would do it. It's not just about the games that need a system refresh. It's about the company. You know, this is very similar to how the Wii situation was, where Nintendo got very confident with the Wii because the Wii was selling like crack cocaine, and then it kind of just fell off a cliff because they hit that market limit, and then they went into the Wii U, which was a rush system to begin with, and things didn't go very well. I'm not saying it's exactly like that. It's just there are similarities to that. And are we starting to see that drop off? Now, obviously, there's some big games coming up, games like Splatoon 3 and Breath of the Wild 2. But with Breath of the Wild 2, everyone kind of was thinking, well, if this game's coming out in the spring, maybe it's coming out alongside of a system refresh to really utilize and captivate what this game is trying to do. But you know, unless it comes out beyond March 31st of 2023, then it's not going to be the case. And I think a lot of people are anticipating that does come out before March of 2023. At least in March of 2023 itself, you want to end the year, the fiscal year, on a high note. So this to me seems like the perfect time to be doing something like that. This to me seems like the perfect time where you're introducing a hardware refresh, because hardware sales are down. So you would want to get your people that are already supporting your system to want to upgrade to a different system or get a secondary system. And that's a great way to do it. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm not a business major. I did take some business classes at community college, but it just seems very strange to me. Obviously, Nintendo is going to do what they want to do when they want to do it. That's what they've always done. But I just feel like this is the perfect time for this. If you're really going to ride out the Nintendo Switch, the base model, and not do some sort of a refresh, if you're not going to go like the iPhone way, which I think many people are thinking Nintendo needs to treat this system, where there are incremental upgrades to things that are involved in the hardware of it, keeping the Switch branding, keeping the Switch name to the point of where it becomes the best-selling system of all time. Like, are you really going to introduce a brand new concept in a couple years? You know, are you going to wait that long? Do you think the system can hold out that long with things like making developers happy, making developers want to put games on the system? I don't know. You know, you can't argue with the success of the system. You can't argue with the success of software sales on the system, but eventually you're going to get to that plateau. You're going to get to that plateau, and then it's all downhill after that. And I feel like we're getting closer and closer to that plateau, and we might actually be, you know, sniffing it. We might actually be sniffing that plateau to where it's just all downhill after there. But let me know in the comment section down below what you think of this. Am I looking too far into this? Which is a possibility. I mean, I have a very active brain that doesn't shut off half the time. Or do you think that I'm onto something here? Is this the time when Nintendo should be looking at refreshing the hardware instead of just being like, nope, everything's fine, semiconductors are the problem, when your systems are still available on all major websites in the United States? So why would they want to buy more systems from you if you could simply buy one right now? And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share. Hit that bell notification as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.